morning, everybody. That was a full slate of Europa League games. I realized when I said yesterday that I'm gonna talk today on Friday about the Super League that I was ahead of myself a little bit, but you know, we're gonna get there. Probably I will talk a little bit because you know, Europa League, there was a lot of action today and very interesting games. I watched I watched the last quarter of the first legs of the first set, and then, you can say more, the second half, and then more or less the entire first a second set of games as a conference. So not that I have too much knowledge about all the details of every game, and I didn't watch too many highlights either because it's just a little bit overwhelming, I have to say, although I really love the Europa League. Well, I think I'm just gonna run through what I can remember from the games that I saw. I think the game of the evening happened early in Moscow between Spartak and the Glasgow Rangers. Honestly, didn't see, the first thing I saw of that game was when Rangers made it 3-2. But at that point, Rangers took already the lead twice. The first goal was an own goal by Spartak. Spartak equalized, Rangers got the lead again, another own goal, this time on the Rangers side, made it 2-2. Then Rangers made it 3-2, and that was how halftime ended. It was ended how it was at halftime, and then second half, I think within 2 or 3 minutes, around just before the 60th, Spartak scored 2 goals. The second one was a little bit unlucky because it took a slight deflection, and therefore the goalkeeper thought it might go wide, which it didn't, and Spartak wins 4-3 and actually makes a huge jump in this group because they were last in that group. Now they're second. The other game in that group was between Rapid Wien, Austria of course, and Villarreal, where the first game was a complete demolition of Rapid at the hands of Villarreal. Now it ended 0-0, and Rapid actually had the better chances. They probably should have gotten a result out of that game, more than the 0-0. So yeah, now they're last in the group. We have Villarreal at 6 points. We have both Spartak and the Glasgow Rangers at 5, and Rapid sits at 4 points. Super tight group, and we have quite a few super tight groups in the Europa League, which is something I completely miss in the Champions League lately. I think the reform that Michel Platini put in kind of destroyed the Champions League a little bit. I know he meant it well of getting more spots for the smaller teams, but I think that really undid the Champions League, because I remember before there were many more open groups, and now you can really say that the way it stands, the Champions League is, after 4 games you usually know who's going to qualify. There's only slim chances for other teams. There are hardly any tight groups, with the exception of the Liverpool, PSG, Napoli group. And don't forget Juventus Star, because thanks to them this group is super interesting. And I honestly, I really would love to see them get out of this group, just for Super League reasons. We'll talk about that later. Other games, I think Frankfurt had it actually seemingly easy against Limassol, I want to say. Yes, Limassol. Who have the Limassol jerseys are beautiful. I gotta say, those deep blue tones, absolutely beautiful. But Frankfurt got 3 goals very quickly. By mid second half they were up 3-0, and then they made themselves more trouble than needed. Limassol pulled one back, they got a stupid red card, and then in the last minute it was 3-2, and they had to hang on. A win did see them through to the second round. The same thing as for Lazio, who just needed to avoid avoid defeat to Marseille. Marseille actually dominated most of the game in the first half, and then Lazio, I think Parolo made it 1-0 right at the stroke of halftime. What can you say? That's efficiency right after halftime. 2-1. Thauvin pulls one back, but was not meant to be. So after 4 games we have Frankfurt and Lazio, and that despite Frankfurt destroying Lazio on the second match day. They are through because Marseille and Limassol only played a 1-1, and that kind of eliminates all chances of progressing for those teams. Yeah, what can you say? What I want to say is jerseys. This is the group proper with the nicest jerseys, but just the ugliest winning that group, and that's Frankfurt. Although the white jerseys are right, a little bit more red for Frankfurt. Although, did you see the many Frankfurt fans in Cyprus? I mean, there was the stand behind. The goal was full with Frankfurt fans. I couldn't believe that. They are starting to believe, I think, especially on the European stage. And also jersey-wise, I mean, the Lazio against Marseille match of this was probably the worst possibility. I mean, Lazio playing in white in the Europa League with a little bit light blue already, not, and then Marseille playing in black with the light blue. I really like those Marseille jerseys, but I was hoping for a little bit nicer color coverage. When Marseille will pull out their third shirts in that game, that would be something, honestly. That would look just wonderful. But I guess they didn't want to do that. Also Lazio, I don't understand, but probably UEFA regulations why you cannot pull out your home kit. Of the early games here, Chelsea got their win in Borisov, and Molvidi beat PAOK for a second time. So yeah, it's Chelsea and Molvidi seemingly going through there. PAOK has only 3 points against Borisov, plays Chelsea next, so I guess they're going for the championship because their PAOK looks actually quite good. You gotta say it. I think probably that's where the focus is. Speaking of focus on the championship, I have the feeling that this is also true for Milan. When you saw the lineup, I mean, there's Pepe Reina in goal, and you know, I know there are injuries, but if Borini plays, yes, probably Higuain is injured, you don't want to risk it. But the lineup reeked a little bit of second string, to be honest. And against Betis Sevilla. And yeah, Betis got the early lead and dominated the early proceedings, but slowly Milan fought itself back into the game. And in the end, you know, there were, I think the game had 3 Suso free kicks. The first one in the first half was a mess, the second one already came close, and the third one in the end went in and made it 1-1. Betis probably was the better team, but Milan fought for the point and got the point, which was vital because, of course, Olympiacos got 5-1 win against, I think it was 5-1 against Dudelange. And so Milan and Olympiacos are on a level on points, on 7 points, and Betis has 8 points. Dudelange has 0. So this is also a tight group, and I have this feeling that it might be Milan that's not making it out of that group. I really think they probably want to focus on Champions League. Getting the Champions League spot. Other games, I think there was the Group B. Was quite interesting. Salzburg completely destroyed Rosenborg. It ended 5-2. They were up 4-0 at halftime and could have been much higher. Rosenborg got themselves back. Minamino had a hat-trick, first Japanese to do so. But the more interesting game was between Celtic and Leipzig, which was a do-or-die game for Celtic, I gotta say. You had Celtic taking an early lead, actually controlling proceedings, and then second half suddenly Leipzig came, and it was a color-wise a beautiful matchup, I have to say. Also, I liked the classic Celtic kit against the blue and yellow Snow White kit, as my daughter calls it, because Snow White has a blue shirt and a yellow skirt. So when she sees that, she says those are Snow White kits. And yeah, Leipzig then really started pressing. I think they had a goal disallowed for offside, I want to say. So did Salzburg, but unjustifiably. That would have been a good goal. And when they got their equalizer, finally, I think it was around the 75th, maybe a little bit later, they got their equalizer. And a little bit more than a minute later, Celtic gets the winner. Huge win for Celtic, because now that puts them level on points with Leipzig. And they are now tied 6 points with Leipzig. Salzburg with 12 points. And the funny thing is that Salzburg is not through yet, because if Salzburg would lose their final 2 games, their next game is at home to Leipzig, where, you know, don't want to say much, but Red Bull might actually say, well, Salzburg, could you please let Leipzig win that one? But I am not sure if that actually will work, because then Salzburg needs to get the result in Glasgow, and that could be a tricky one. Has to be said. Rosenborg is a little bit out of the element in that group, which is a little bit surprising to me. What else do I remember? Yeah, Arsenal got a 0-0 at home against Sporting, completely dominating the game. There was Welbeck seemingly had a horrible injury from the shocked faces that you could see. Same thing, I think Musaki for Milan got injured. That's for me the most concerning thing, is that Milan now has so many injuries. They used to have the Milan lab that actually prevented injuries. It's very, very, very disconcerting that Milan is racking up injuries. That is down to the coaching and the medical staff, because I think if you have a good staff and early detection of what's good and what might not be good, then you can avoid many injuries. And yeah, Milan is not doing a good job there. So Welbeck, I don't know what happened to Welbeck, but it didn't look good. And yeah, Arsenal dominated. I think at one point they had 75% possession, but couldn't break through. And I think the point is vital for Sporting, because in the other game, Vorskla Poltava lost at home to Karabakh Akdam 1-0 after winning away 1-0. So basically they shot themselves in the foot. Now Sporting has 7 points, and that probably will be enough to see them through, because they only need to get a win against one of those opponents. They're sitting with 3 points. Quickly, Poltava, I didn't really was aware of Poltava, but there was a huge battle at Poltava that decided the Great Northern War in the 1700s with King Charles of Sweden, in a way the depleted army already, against Peter the Great, not Alexander the Great, Peter the Great, which basically established Russia as a major power in Europe at that time. So some history for you. If you want to know more about the Great Northern War, I can only look up extra history. The Great Northern War, it's a great animated series on those events. The big showdown in Europe, in Eastern Europe, basically. Okay, anything else that I can remember now? Yes. Sarpsborg against Malmö, or Malmö against Sarpsborg ended 1-1 again, which means that Henk now is leading in that group, and Besiktas is last. Cannot believe that, really. I think Bordeaux got the first points at home against Zenit. Yeah, Sevilla against Akhisarspor had an easy 2-0 lead, and then suddenly everything fell apart. Akhisarspor got the early goal in the second half. 1-2, they got a penalty that they put on the post. Sevilla got a red card. Akhisarspor equalizes, and then Sevilla gets a penalty and pulls out the win, and basically is now looking to cruise through the group, although that didn't look good. And I think Krasnodar is the other team that will make it out of that group, and they look also not too bad, if I remember now my results correctly. yeah, that's about it what I can at the moment recall. As you see, I watched mostly games that were on the screen. I didn't see many others. I know that Zagreb, I think, won as well in their group, but you didn't see much because there was so much fun. Well, that gives me a few minutes to finish this video talking about the Super League ideas and football leagues. There are many other videos out there, especially on YouTube land, that probably explain this better than I do, but I wanna how to say, I want to give you my opinion. I mean, I think it would. I don't want to say this is the end of this or the end of that. It is the end of solidarity, but there is no solidarity in European football at the moment anyway. The first German television ARD brought out a great documentary about all these football leagues and kind of working with their Spiegel journalists on what's happening there. And probably this will be a shot towards the big clubs that you know we figured out what you guys wanna do, and you will lose all favor with the fans. Now I can understand where the big clubs are coming from. The big clubs are of course saying, we are paying the big bucks and we are the drivers behind the money-making machine that's the Champions League. I find it, as a Milan fan, I find it a little bit funny that Milan at the moment is in the discussions of being a permanent member of that Super League. But yeah, in Italy, Milan is also pulling higher numbers than most others, thanks to them being a highly successful club until recently. I find it also curious that, for instance, Inter is a guest member. If I'm an Inter fan, I would be seriously pissed at that. If I'm a Roma or Napoli fan, of course, same thing. And it goes for almost any other team. I think not even Liverpool was in there, which is crazy. I mean, I think it was Arsenal for some reason, Manchester City, Manchester United. It just doesn't sound right, honestly. In Spain you can make a case that there are only two teams, but even Atleti is better. So the idea of them getting out of, using this as a pressure for more money, I can understand. I even understand that, with the national teams, they are the employers and they bear all the risk. The problem is that the federations don't have that much money. The big money maker are those big clubs. And the Champions League allowed them to get even bigger. The problem now is, of course, that now you have established yourself so much. The Champions League, thank you Platini, is not this great product anymore that it used to be, because the group stage is a sham most of the time. And even your weird seeding procedure cannot help that. There are the two teams that make it through, very clear right from the get-go, and it gets more interesting than later on. So that's a concern for the big clubs, and I think before you point fingers at them, you need to understand where they are coming from. And they look at the NFL, and it's a completely different structure. But in the NFL, or that's the big market generator, but any major sports league in America, you have franchises, you have guaranteed income, you make the rules more or less. You don't have to have the governing body like FIFA. You're a little bit outside of the rules and you can make your own rules. And revenue sharing, and it's telling that, for instance, the Dallas Cowboys, or in the NBA the New York Knicks, or in the NHL the Toronto Maple Leafs, no matter what their performance is, they are the highest valued teams because they make the most money, because they are in the big markets. They have the high reputation, they have also great logos, they have great marketing, and their success is almost independent of sporting success as a company. Manchester United is getting into that realm, and I think Barcelona, Madrid somewhat too. And I think this is what the big clubs see when to talk about the Super League, you know, here there's a big chance for us to make a lot of money if we just band together and we have those big names playing only each other, and we're taking care of ourselves. Now, is this fair? No, it's not fair, because where do you make a cut? The way they became big is a completely different structure than in America, where you know you admit teams in there. So I think it's hard to make it one-to-one as in America. If you wanted to make such a Super League, you would need to completely start from the ground up and make new teams, because I don't think it is fair if you saw it from Italy, it's just Juventus and Milan. You have Inter, you have Roma, which is a big team. You wanna get in a good mix of cities. I also think it's not fair if you watched Ajax Benfica. Those are great teams and those are great markets. Either the Super League is thinking too selfishly, and if it's of course the interests of especially Manchester City and Paris Saint-Germain, the teams that want to splash out as much cash as they want to have to buy themselves some success. But I think they have problems in the legacy party department if they would do this in the Super League, I think. And I also think that, you know, if you can make it under UEFA rules, it's much more valid. Just, that's my feeling. I really don't want the Super League to come. I think most fans don't want that, because you don't want to have this closed club. I think sooner or later, and we might be at that point, is that to me it would be a logical step. You have in every country, you have the top league, and then you have regional leagues, and they break up into, at least in Austria, Germany it's that way, and I'm sure it's in every other country. Then you have more the regional leagues, and it becomes smaller and smaller. From that point of view, it might make sense to just spin it one further and make one top European league. Would I like to see that? Not necessarily. Because I think it can get messy very soon. And what those big clubs want is they want to have guaranteed income. And, you know, become a little bit independent of sporting success. And this is where they are coming from. This is not a defense. I think it's just important to understand their point of view as well before making a judgment. And they have valid points that need to be met. Now, would it be nicer that the smaller leagues would come on a more even level? Yes, but I think everything so far, from the Bosman ruling onward, pointed that the bigger will get bigger. And you see with Ajax and Benfica, two teams that were big names for most of the time of their existence since the 90s, they just fell apart, and they are also rents. For them, they are Europa League clubs now. They can win the Europa League, not even that. The big four leagues are just that much more powerful. And you know, you have the Premier League with putting huge money in, and all other leagues. I mean, there is at least one big package. In Spain, the big clubs market themselves. Same thing goes in Italy. Germany, Pro is the most equal example, but that of course irks Bayern Munich, because they want to put up world-class club, which frankly they are, but they cannot compete on the highest level. And what holds them back is how the German Bundesliga is ran, as sad as it is. So I would hope that there's a consensus, but you know, everything so far points to that. You know, now clubs can buy the best players. That basically killed the World Cup in terms of quality, because it used to be that the World Cup, the best players you see at the World Cup, because there you could see your dream squads from every country. Now every club team, I think, will beat the World Championship champions France, every decent club team, bar none. And I'm afraid it will go further in this direction. The rich become richer and the poor need to hold on, unless there's some legal way of finding a way around it, or some consensus between the clubs. I think the Champions League, the way it is now, was a first step, but of course it's not enough for the big guys. It is depressing a little bit, to be honest, but you know, you also gotta see the reality, and ask yourself, What would you want to see in the Champions League? Do you want to see teams from smaller countries being beaten up by teams from big countries? Or do you want to see competition, very tight competition? Your Barcelona's against Liverpool, your Juves against PSG. I mean, those are the big matchups that you want to see. Of course, there's in the case of oversaturation as well. So it makes more money. And whenever you don't understand something, always ask yourself, what's the money? And don't call the teams necessarily greedy. They just want to find ways to make their product better. And they want to find ways, and they know that they have the power. Unfortunately, as it is, it's not UEFA that has power. It's not even FIFA that has power. They want to wrestle it away from them. Well, those are my thoughts. Let me know what you thought about the Europa League results. What do you think about the Super League? Give me a thumbs up if you like this video. Subscribe to my channel if you want to see more of these. And I will talk to you soon. Bye.